What's going on, everyone? Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres with Scoop Duck on 3, coming to you on this is Wednesday, June 25th, as I record this, but you guys are going to be hearing it on the podcast or watching it on YouTube on Thursday, June 26th. But got some big news to get into with Oregon picking up a commitment from four-star quarterback Bryson Beaver out of Vista Murrieta High School in Southern California, also an Elite 11 finalist. He's the newest member of Dan Lanning's 2026 Oregon recruiting class, and I have a very special guest joining me to break down who Bryson Beaver is, both as a young man and as a player, and that's none other than Centennial High School offensive coordinator Anthony Catalano. Anthony, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, we were talking a little bit before we hit record here that you wear a lot of hats over there at Centennial. You're the OC there for the Huskies. You're a teacher and you're the assistant athletic director. So a lot going on for you. But I know that our listeners want to learn more about this new Oregon commit, and you worked with Bryson at the QB club as one of his coaches, one of his trainers. So if you could just to educate our listeners, maybe just give them a brief background of who you are and then your connection to Bryson.
Yeah, so you listed some of my job role or titles at Centennial. I played quarterback in high school, played in college, and then began coaching in college as soon as I was done playing. So that's my background in terms of football and just some sort of acumen that I have. But getting back into Southern California, a lot of our quarterbacks at my high school that I coach at and played at worked with a big time organization. And so just went in to learn with them and be around our quarterbacks. And some of those guys are Hassan Longstreet, that's at USC, Jake Retzlaff at BYU, Tanner McKee was with the Philadelphia Eagles. So a lot of those guys were over there training. So just wanted to learn a little bit, but really wasn't interested in the commute at the end of the day. So wanted to help out kids in our area. In our first year in it, we kind of identified Bryson as number one, probably the most talented player in our region that's, produced a lot of guys. So like I said, the players that I've listed from our school, but NFL wise, Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud are from this area. So a lot of top prospects that are kind of like jumping onto the scene from our region. So we identified Bryson and had him in, and this was, he had 2 scholarship offers, NAU, Nevada, and we kind of just saw like the potential, not just from his attributes and size and length and, athletic ability, but as just a thrower, that someone was not raw in a negative light, but just someone who has a natural ability that just needs to be tuned in. And then you're going to start seeing some extremely high level things. And, about 6 months later, after us working with him and kind of seeing some of those things, it's obviously came to light over the last 2 weeks with his recruitment and how he's blown up, and then along with the Elite 11.
It's been quite the journey for Bryson. I mean, just to give our listeners a little bit of a background as far as my connection. Obviously, I'm in Southern California and I cover Oregon primarily, but I try to use my platform to shine some light on guys on the West Coast and in Southern California. And I don't even remember when it was. It had to have been at least a year ago. Bryson was tagging me on his X or Twitter posts, and I'd never heard of who he was. But I know kept retweeting everything just to help get his name out there. And then obviously a very full circle moment with him committing to Oregon on Wednesday. So pretty cool little story there. And then obviously he committed to Boise State, excuse me. He committed to Boise State, and then now he's at Oregon. So Anthony, for someone who's gotten to work with him, pretty closely, before we talk about, everything he can do on the field, he's obviously really gifted in that regard. Just who is Bryson Beaver, the person, and what's it been like for you just to get to spend some time around him and get to know him?
Yeah, I think he's a very eager, student of the game and just in general in every aspect of football, and very open and, confident, but also not too arrogant to ask questions and not know. So that's always nice to work with a guy like that. But he's a great kid. He comes from a very supportive family. And, he's very consistent with his work ethic and his determination to try to be, the best version of himself. So it's not very difficult to work with guys like that. And obviously it's came to fruition at an extremely high level. But regardless of that, I would be able to say those things if he was still committed to Boise or going to a different school. He's just an awesome kid to work with. So been very lucky to have him.
It certainly seems like there's no quarterback in the country that's been hotter from a recruiting prospect side than Bryson. Can you just speak to what it was like to, kind of be along with him on his journey and just see him just catch fire what feels like the last month or so?
Yeah, I think it's definitely great to be wanted probably all the time. That's what parents and the players would want in this kind of role. But I definitely would rather choose being, a wanted commodity later in the game than earlier. And so I think it's just been it's going to come to fruition and work out. And, just being able to see his growth, like it's okay for guys to develop later. I mean, he's started since he was a freshman in high school. He started at a different school and now he's at Vista Murrieta. But he's been playing varsity football for 4 years. And so it's okay that your recruiting is natural like it used to be. This was what recruiting used to be much earlier in the social media era. Like you played your junior year, you started to gain traction your junior or you're going into your senior year, that's spring semester. And then, summertime, you're really starting to hone in on scholarship when you visit campus and go to camps. And so he's kind of followed the more traditional quote unquote old school path, but I would rather have it be that way for sure. That all the coaches have seen. Look how far he's come over the last 6 months since his film, and I think that was on display at the Elite 11. He's one of the best kids in the country playing quarterback in his class, and so it's been awesome to see.
Well, you raised an interesting point there, Anthony, just about the recruiting timeline. And there's no position that is kind of under more scrutiny or under more of a microscope than quarterback. And quarterbacks are getting identified earlier and earlier nowadays, and recruitments move at a rapid pace with schools wanting to get their guy in the fold to kind of build the class around him. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know here, but just tell me a little bit about kind of the timing of all of it, because quarterback recruiting is just bizarre. I feel like with how early some of these guys are getting offers. I mean, I was at the under the radar camp last spring, and I'm sure you know a guy, Neiman Lawrence, the dude out of Florida. It was an eighth grade camp, and then here we are a little over a year later, and he's already a national recruit in the 2028 class.
Yep. Yeah, no, I've seen Jalen Wade that's down at IMG. I know he's originally a California kid, and it's like you see that kid in the eighth grade, and like if I want to throw it back and use my personal experience, like I was a starting quarterback at Centennial, and my quote unquote backup who could have started over me and been amazing was Tanner McKee. That was a 5-star recruit. Like I knew in seventh grade that dude was going to be a phenomenal player and have a shot to make it to the NFL just based on his talent. And some kids grow earlier, so you can really see it earlier. And so you want to be in the game for a lot of these schools, but at the end of the day, you want that kid to be at his utmost potential in terms of what he could do at the high school level at the end. It's great that you play early, but what are you doing as a senior? What do you look like going into the fall? Do you look like you're tapped out from a quarterback perspective? Are you so mechanically correct that like, hey, there's not much left to get into the ball? So that's like where Bryson, he has some minor things that he has to work on just to create more velocity, but he has those, I don't want to say holes, but like he has the ability to continue growing. And that's what you want. You don't want these guys that are maximized, hold back, developed all the way. And that's what you're getting for the next 4 years. You want kids that you can find that there's, developmental traits and attributes there. And I think that's Bryson's kind of the blueprint for that he has a lot of room to grow. And that's why he's a hot commodity.
Yeah, I like that you bring it back to Bryson. I'm gonna try to get some of his highlights up on the screen here. I was having some technical issues before, so Anthony, you were very patient waiting for me there. I appreciate it. But let's get into Bryson the player, because that's what has people really excited. Just give me your coach's take or kind of your scouting report here on Bryson the player, and kind of what you think makes him special.
Yeah, I think obviously you can't teach size, and so him being in the 6'2.5", 6'3" range is going to allow him to put a lot of size onto his frame. He's around the 200-pound mark, so I think getting into a high class and high performance weight training and nutrition program that like Oregon will have is only going to help him put on great weight and increase his speed. But natural athlete, plays basketball. And so he moves extremely well in the pocket. He doesn't watch the rush, which is a very high level trait to have at quarterback, so he can move fluidly. Um, and then just like I was mentioning earlier, the arm talent is there. I think he won for on three, like the strongest arm or whatever phrase they used coming from the 11. But there's a lot more left in the tank from a few minor mechanical things in terms of his foot strike and how long his front stride is, and then just not leaning as far forward in some of his throws. So once he gets those down, it's going to be, very, very, very fun to watch him throw the ball around in Autzen Stadium.
Yeah, I brought back this highlight here. If you guys are watching on YouTube, that I've heard talked about a couple times since I've been talking to people, and Bryson's kind of gotten on my radar. He's in the pocket here, and he just gets clobbered from the blind side and still just launches the ball. I mean, it's got to be at least 50 yards there, maybe a little bit more, Anthony. But I think that I can definitely attest to his arm strength in person. I mean, he was just launching the ball at the Elite 11. And obviously you see that as a fan, and you get really excited. So my next question for you, Anthony, is just kind of what you think his next steps are, and how you think he'll transition to the college level, because he's got one more season of high school ball left over at Vista Murrieta. And then before you know it, he's going to be wheels up to Eugene, getting going at the college level as an early enrollee.
Yeah, I think again he'll continue to hone on some of those mechanical things that I mentioned earlier, just to maximize himself as a player. You won't have to worry about his toughness. Again, I kind of didn't mention that before, but he had a minor knee injury that they had to hold him out of some games just as precaution. But he's out there trying to play versus us. And again, if you understand Southern California football, did they really have a chance in that game? No, but he's trying to play. So super competitive, tough kid. So um, but I think just the next level things are kind of the stuff that we work on. I love the quarterback training, going out and throwing and working those things. But where I'm really passionate about, just from my experience and basically my inexperience coming into college, was just understanding football and being in charge of an offense, calling the run plays, making checks, calling pass protection, knowing where defenses are trying to take away things. And so that's just the next level for him. He didn't have as much experience when I started working with him in December, but now he's able to speak a true language that's knowledgeable throughout the country, and we all know what he's talking about. So those are just continuing to grow in those areas. I think will get him ready to run a high level offense that Coach Stein operates.
That's awesome stuff, Anthony. I appreciate the perspective, and just letting us know a little bit more about Bryson. And you can see the tape here, if you guys are watching on YouTube, just what makes Bryson so special. I mean, he's moving all around the pocket, navigating pressure, and throwing with anticipation. All things that you want to see from a quarterback if you're a coach. And then Anthony, I think I want to talk a little bit more about the recruiting process, because I know that that's something that is stressful but fun for a lot of high school prospects nowadays.
Yep.
I don't know how much you talked to Bryson, as things were kind of getting crazy these last couple of weeks. But if you did, anything you could share as far as how you think he handled it, and how you maybe would have handled it with when you have Oregon, Ole Miss, LSU, Alabama all knocking on your door.
Yeah, I think I was fortunate just in last year's recruiting cycle that, at my high school, we had Hassan Longstreet. So he was recruited by nearly every school in the country. And, Oregon was one of his top schools as well. So just being able to see his process, what was important to him, how his family went about it. And then Bryson's was, interesting for me. And, nothing was right or wrong about what they've done. You have to do, what you're most comfortable with. And each kid has different understanding and expectations for what they're looking for. Like I mentioned, to kids all the time, like when I was in college, I didn't want to share a room with someone. So that was like a thing for me. I just was comfortable in my own space. So, hey, make sure you figure out what's important to you. Like football is going to be football, but whatever, where do you want to live? Where do you want to go to school? Do you like the food that they serve? Like all the things, what's important to you. So Bryson, I felt like narrowed down his things in a very professional manner, as a young man, not really a kid, as I keep kind of mentioning him. He's going to be a young adult here soon. Um, so it's very, very, intentful. His parents knew what was important to him. Um, and so, yeah, I think they did their due diligence. They saw a lot of schools, which is, I think, very important. A lot of people might take that the wrong way. The way social media works, you can, post about all your visits like some players do, some players don't. So I think he did a good job in just managing, when he's putting things out there to the public, and not trying to step on anyone's toes, just doing, his job and finding what was most important to him at each of these schools. And obviously Oregon checked far more boxes than a lot of other people.
Nice. Yeah, I remember talking to Bryson, during it, and even talking to his family a little bit, saying like we didn't want to be talking to other schools while we were on visits, and wanted to be respectful of just how they operated. So definitely first class in all of those regards. Man, and we've gotten some awesome stuff from you here, Anthony. But I know you have some other commitments kind of on your schedule today. The last one I just want to kind of toss up to you. I know when we originally got in touch, it was just about Centennial and kind of what the program is like over there, and trying to kind of help some of these guys get a little bit more exposure. So just gonna toss it up to you. Anything that you wanted to, what do people need to know about the Centennial program? I mean, it's already one of the most prestigious programs nationally, certainly here in Southern California. I've made the drive out there from Long Beach a number of times to see some big games. But yeah, what do you want to tell people about what the Huskies have going on out there in the IE?
Yeah, I appreciate that part. Number one, I think we're one of the best public schools in the country, and then again, one of the best schools in the country. So we compete at extremely high level. Last year, we signed 13 Division I players, which was the second most IMG academy that takes players from all over the world. So I continue to put that out there on social media to shed light, because that's just kind of an unbelievable accomplishment for a school like ours. We have less than 3,000 kids, and we compete against anybody at any country or any state, any school, anytime we'll play them. So I think that's awesome for what we're doing there and just producing high level players. I mean, Oregon has Gary Bryant Jr. or gonna be a senior this year, playing in this fall. So his dad coaches for us, Gary Bryant Sr. But so Gary, I'm hoping he's healthy this year and can contribute to leading Oregon to a national championship, because we want our players to be on the national stage playing those last 4 or 5 games during the season. So
Nice, good stuff. Yeah, if you guys aren't already keeping an eye on Centennial, make sure you guys keep an eye out for them and what they have in store for 25. I remember, I think I saw Tanner McGee when he led that game-winning drive against Oregon a couple years ago out in Palo Alto. That was a heck of a game. I know a lot of Duck fans would have wanted to come away with a win there, but just goes to show you got to have a guy who can lead you to a win when it's crunch time. But really appreciated having you on, Anthony. You sharing your insight. If you guys are watching or listening, if you want to find more of me, you can find me anywhere at mtorres sports. Subscribe to the Scoop Duck on 3 YouTube channel, and follow the Ducks Dish podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. But until next time, thank you guys so much for tuning in.